Orson Scott Card, Speaker for the Dead. This is book 2 in the Ender's Games trilogy, or I guess it's 4. 4 book series, and this is 18 chapters with 382 pages, summed up simply as Ender. My name is Ender, and I speak for the trees. So, kind of a throwback to Dr. Seuss's The Lorax, and really that's what it is. And he, after killing an entire alien species, it being called xenocide, in the end of Ender's Game, he then seeks penance and becomes the speaker for the dead. So it's kind of his alter ego, and he takes that mantle almost as like his anonymous, Clark Kent disguise. So, anyways, he goes through and travels from world to world and speaks at deaths. So he shows up. There is, an important figure, or really anybody. It could be any human, and he talks to other people that knew that person and finds out how this person lived and tries to describe their life and the truths about them for good or ill without ego. So this is what happened, this is how they lived, this is what they would have said if they were here. So very interesting and neat concept. I really liked it. This came out a while ago and is super on point. 1986. I like that Ender, his event got politicized. There were some who called him Ender the Xenocide, and others who were like, hey, he did what needed to be done. So, this is 1986, science fiction book, but that's still happening today. Every event seems to be politicized, so that was pretty on point and made it very realistic. Ender is 35 in here. He's a professor on a Nordic world. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it, but he's there with his sister, and she, Valentine, has put down roots. She now is pregnant and is starting a family, got married, but Ender really is still kind of looking for his place in the universe. And so he's a professor, and his ear gem, which is a sentient AI named Jane, notifies him that there is a death by a human death from an alien species. So the Bequinos live on Lusania, and it is a Brazilian colony world, but also shared with the Bequinos, shortened to piggies. So they're short creatures that live in the forests and who are pig-shaped but walk on hind legs and then can grow into trees in their second life or third life. I don't know. Anyways, so a human is murdered, or seemingly, and Ender gets called to speak the person who was murdered's death. And of course, near light speed travel is invented, and traveling there, two other requests for a speaker come through. And so I don't know how many years he was gone, 20 years, roughly 18 years, but to him it was only 2 weeks because of the way light speed travel works and all that. I won't get into it, but this is science fiction, so it was neat. So his, everybody that he knows is much, much older. 20 years older or whatever. But of course, since he is speaker for the dead, he's jumped through 15, 20 worlds and spoken at those. And so he's only 35, but 3,000 years have passed since his event, since he took out and killed all of the buggers. So a lot going on. He's carrying with him one cocoon, one Hive Queen, so the last remaining bugger, and searching for a world. And so he's going world to world speaking, but also kind of his secondary or his primary objective is to find a place to bring the Hive Queen back to life. So he goes to Lithuania and leaves his sister behind, and she, of course, under her alias, has been writing about what it means to be human. And there are different terms that have grown into the language about humans in my tribe, humans on the world but as a stranger, human from another world, and animal. So this is a very focuses a lot on philosophy. Struggling today. And really all of the species want to know whether the species is classified as an animal, Varlais, or ramen. It's, you know, equivalent to a human from another world. And so both the piggies and Jane want this for themselves, and they both want Ender to write about them. So Ender, after committing xenocide and, you know, saving humanity, he then, in his process of hopping and speaking, also wrote the Hive Queen and the Hedgemon. And so in that 3,000 years of him hopping from world to world, public opinion has changed, and humanity is sympathetic for both the Hedgemon, which was Peter, and Hive Queen. So they've seen them, they've understood them, they've learned, and public opinion changed. And so that's what Jane and the piggies want for themselves. They want the speaker for the dead to write about them and introduce them to the world, but also say, hey, these people are okay. So, uh, I like that it is a Brazilian Catholic colony. You know, it's very religious oriented, you know, very ritualized. And so that, to me, felt familiar. Some of my family members are Catholic, so I didn't mind that at all. And it was neat that there was more than one person calling for a speaker. I liked that as well. I was kind of shocked and almost kind of bummed that Ender was only there for 4 or 5 days before he spoke. I feel like if it was anybody else, it would have taken, you know, weeks or months, you know, but that's not the way the book turned out. And it was a good book. I did enjoy it. I couldn't get through it quite as quickly as Ender's Game, but it was still really enjoyable. But if you don't like philosophy and religion's not your thing, then yeah, this probably isn't the book for you. Stick to Ender's Game. But there were lots of perspectives in here. I really enjoyed, you know, the different children that were there, Ender, the church, but also the Pequinos, and even Jane. So lots of different perspectives. Really enjoyed that. Lots of world building, you know, setting up for future books. And of course, there's the Desicola virus. So this world is under quarantine. Nobody can leave once they join because of this virus. And it plays into the storyline. The main character, her grandparents or her parents died to the virus, but also gave everybody like a vitamin that they could take to, or a supplement to survive the virus. So she's kind of isolated and alone, and she's the original one who called for the speaker. So again, lots of philosophy, and it does kind of set the stage for the next books. And we already talked about what it means to be human with the ramen versus Varlais. And the perspectives that I really liked was when Ender switches off Jane. He does, you know, for him it's only like an hour, but to Jane it's like a lifetime. So also the Hive Queen, when Ender experiences lightspeed travel, that was really cool too, right? She's kind of doing her own thing and experiences time differently. So, like I said, summed up as my name is Ender and I speak for the trees. Good book, enjoyable. And this was actually the one that Orson Scott Card wanted to write first. You know, it is a sequel, but he really wanted to write this one first and then wrote Ender's Game to kind of facilitate and set this up. So this quote here is when after someone climbs the fence. Do you think we are making a mistake? Said the bishop. Not at all, said Dom Christo. I think we've taken a step towards something truly magnificent. But humankind almost never forgives true greatness. Wow. Seemingly deep sentence. You know, like the people who did terrible things could maybe progress history. You know, history wasn't made by a committee, right? So just a really powerful quote stood out to me. And this book is worth your time if you can tolerate philosophy. So give it a look. The Ender's Game series is a lot of fun. And remember to buy your books used.